Hi, Odeli. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hello, Marta. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm super excited to be
I
here.
am so
Thank you.
excited as well.
Me too.
And based on what you just said, people will know that you are a Brit.
I'm a Brit.
The second one on the show, we were just talking about that. And I am so excited not only to be listening to you because you have a beautiful accent,
Oh, thank
but
you.
also for the topic of all the things. And I do want you to introduce yourself because I don't want to say anything wrong, but I am particularly excited to talk about NLP because I know that
Okay.
is your expertise and I want you to explain to us what all that means. But let's go baby steps. Tell us more
Okay.
about you and how you got started in this field.
So I am what I like to call myself a transformation specialist. And what that means is that I help and assist people, primarily entrepreneurs,
Mhm.
in making fundamental transformations in their life. So it could be a particular area of their life that they want to change and transform, or it could be their entire world that they want it to be different and they want to change it. But the truth is that the way that I work and the level of depth that I go to, that when you transform one area of life, it has a ripple effect and it impacts on all of the other areas of their life. So I help people to transform. And I got started probably about 10 years ago,
Wow.
really, when the journey for me started to unfold, because I was in a pretty dark place and I was trying to figure out how to make things better for myself. And so I went on a journey of personal discovery and self discovery. And that led me on to a number of different avenues and different directions, trying to figure out what I could do to make my life better and make it more manageable, a happier place to be. And through all of that self discovery that I went on, I ended up coming into contact with NLP. And I'd kind of always been familiar with NLP because my mum was interested in it when I was growing up. So I saw books around the house, but I never really delved much into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to this stage in my life where things just weren't working out. And I tried medication for clinical depression, I tried the counselling, I tried 12 steps recovery. And although those things had helped to a degree,
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't found the one thing that was the aha moment, so to speak, until I came across NLP. And it was through a conversation that I was having with a friend, and she recommended somebody that she knew and who had was trained in NLP and timeline therapy and hypnotherapy. And they recommended that I speak to her and find out more about it. So I did. And then I ended up hiring my own coach who was also trained in those modalities. Then I ended up going on a training course to train to become a practitioner, then a master practitioner, and then I went on to become a trainer of NLP. And now I use all of those skills in addition to all of the stuff that I'd kind of learned previous to that. So I've got a background in psychiatry, psychology, sociology. So all of the things that I already brought to the table,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of pile it all together, and I've created now a transformation program which I take my clients through and assist them in making profound and fundamental transformations. So that's the kind of short version of a
Okay.
very, very long and intricate story. But
Yes.
yeah,
So it's
that's
been
where it all
10
began.
years when you first started doing the courses and diving deeper into, wow, that's incredible. And what's interesting for me, and like you said, you'd seen books before, your mom was kind of interested, but you didn't really know what it was. And it's
Yeah.
kind of how it's been for me in a way. I had an English teacher back when I was still young in Brazil,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
she started going through NLP and she started using some techniques in class. And at first I thought, we're supposed to be learning English. What is she doing? But I was interested in it.
Yeah.
I didn't really know exactly what it was. And I've
Yeah.
kind of carried some of the stuff that she would say, like how your brain works and things like that
Amazing.
with me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now that I've been doing all this coaching work and personal development, it's been coming up a lot for me. And that's why I
Amazing.
was so interested when we connected on Instagram to
Yeah.
interview you, which by the way, it's been months, right? Since we've
Yeah. Yeah. It
talked. And it's like,
has.
I need to have you on my podcast. And
Yeah.
you were busy going through a process. I forget if you were rebranding or
Rebranding,
okay.
like connecting with my audience and like building up things that I'd had in the pipelines for a long time. So yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm so glad that we're finally making this happen, because
Me too.
first of all, I want to understand more what exactly NLP is and how it is used, and
Hmm.
also how it can help someone change their lives and go through this process of transformation, because this is what I'm interested in for myself, and
Okay.
what I like to impart for other women as well with the
Of
work that I
course.
do, understanding how the transformation comes from within, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for asking that question. It's a really, really important question to ask. And there are quite a number of different definitions, but my favorite one is that NLP is the study of excellence. And it's the study of how thinking creates our behavior
Mm,
and allows us to create behavior of excellence. So when we can tap into and understand the way that the brain works, when we can tap into and understand the programs that we're running in the brain, because the brain is like a computer.
mhm,
And when we can understand the processes and understand the programs that are running in the brain that perhaps aren't working in a way that allows us to get the outcomes that we want, what NLP allows us to do is to kind of slow down those programs or to understand them much more fundamentally.
mm,
And it allows us to change them or slightly make, you can make smaller changes to them, or you can make really fundamental changes to those patterns and those programs. And a lot of the time, the programs that we're running are outdated, old programs from childhood.
mm,
A lot of the programs that we're running are connected to things that we were taught, behaviors that we were shown that were useful at some point in our lives. And now as we up level and we grow and we move on to different and higher planes of evolution and understanding about life, and we move in our businesses and in our careers, the programs that were once useful to get us from A to B, they're no longer necessarily useful anymore. So what we need to learn to do is to work out what programs we can use instead, what ways of thinking are going to be much more impactful, going to help us get much more, the better results, the best results that we can possibly get in this moment, and to allow us to step into the best versions of ourselves that we can be. And the way that it can help you is basically, as a client, what would happen is that the coach who has these skills would, I would spend a number of hours speaking to my client and working out what those patterns are.
mhm.
How are they running their brain? How are they operating? It's like figuring out the operating system of a computer, finding out how it runs, what's the information that's functioning and running through the brain, and what results are you currently getting? What results are you getting that you don't want? And then it's my job as the specialist to analyze that data. I call it data collecting. So I analyze the data. And the data that I gather is just through language. And the language that is collected is so important because that's unconscious material that I'm
Wow.
gathering. It's material that is coming up from the unconscious. And I collect all of that data. I go away and I analyze it. And then what I do is I create a bespoke intervention for the client to assist them in changing, rewiring, because what this stuff does is it actually rewires the brain.
Mm.
It's not painful, but it does. It rewires the brain so that it runs in a way that gets the outcome that the client wants. So what we're doing is we're getting rid of, I suppose, unresourceful behavior, unresourceful strategies, unresourceful patterns, and actually changing those patterns or installing new patterns and new programs that assist the person who's doing that work to run those patterns in a way that gets the outcome that they want. So I love it. I'm so passionate about it. And I'm so passionate about it because it helped me transform my life when I tried so many other things, so many other remedies, so many other tools and techniques. And then I finally found something that undeniably works in what I think is a rapid time,
Right.
rather than spending your entire life unhappy and not being able to figure out what can I do to fix this, what can I do to change this.
Yeah.
In the space of as short as 2 to 3 months, you can actually have your life be the way that you want it to be by working out, by having somebody assist you in working out what programs aren't working and how to change those programs.
That's incredible. And I have a couple questions. Well, you did say
Okay.
2 to 3 months. And that's what I was going to say. How long does it take for you to start noticing this change? And I'm sure
Yeah.
it depends on the person, the situation.
Hmm.
But you would say in around 2, 3 months you would see a change, or
I say, like in the work that I do, after the first session, you see the change start to
Okay.
happen. You see the change start to take place, because, like I said, we are working at the unconscious level, and when you work at the unconscious level, change happens instantly.
Mm,
So through the questioning technique, through the linguistic style of my questioning, through the language that patterns that I use, I'm communicating directly with the unconscious mind, with the part of you that runs between 95 and 97% of our human functioning.
mhm.
So when you're working at that level of depth with a human being, you're going to see profound changes starting to take place. Now, I had a client a couple of weeks ago that I was working with, and she'd worked with a psychotherapist for, it was about 20, no, sorry, for 5 years.
Mm,
And she was doing 40 hours a year. So about once a week, just a little,
okay.
you know, a little under
Mhm,
once a week. She was doing this work with the psychotherapist. And she said that in a 2 hour session that we had together, she made more progress forward than she had in 5 years with the psychotherapist. So you start to see the changes instantly.
mhm.
But the profound, it depends on the individual person, it
Right.
depends on the client, depends on the presenting problem. But in terms of getting you from coming to me with a presenting problem, or coming to the practitioner or the coach with a presenting problem, and then having things be and have transformed in the way that you want them to be from start to finish,
Mhm.
that process takes between 2 to 3 months. And that's, you know, you can have a session maybe once a week or every other week,
Okay.
depending on your availability.
Right.
So it depends on a number of different factors. But I in the level and the depth and the brevity of the work that I do, I start to see my clients start to see their changes within after the first session.
Okay. Oh, that's incredible. And what I'm particularly interested in, besides how the brain works,
Yeah.
obviously, is just the whole language aspect, because I have been obsessed with languages my whole life and
Yes.
understanding, the cultures and how everything is connected to language, because it's how we express ourselves, how we remember things.
Sure.
And again, it has to do with how our brain processes stuff too. I would
Absolutely.
love for you to give me some examples, because you were saying there are specific language that you use in your questions, and based on how that person answers the questions and the language that they use, you can have some hints, and that will guide kind of like the work. I don't know if you can give me examples of specific language, or maybe a client of something, just so we can put our finger on, okay, how does she see this and how does she make the change based on all of that in a session.
Okay. So another great question. And in a way, it's kind of less easy to pinpoint because it's so organic when the client comes to me with a specific presenting problem. So the questions that I'm asking are really about, in the first instance, it's what the problem about the problem.
Mhm.
What is it that the client it has in their life currently and doesn't want to have? And there are certain keywords, there are certain key phrases that give me hints that there's something underlying. There's something beyond what they're saying. There's something beyond the information they're sharing.
Okay.
What they're giving me kind of perhaps currently is surface structure information. And what it's my job to do is to dig behind that information, to pick up on words that they're giving me that would indicate that there's something more, there's something behind that, there's something that then, and they're not hiding it consciously.
Hmm.
It's not a decision that they've made consciously to withhold that information from me, but it's my job as the analyst to pick up on specific words, or it could be even a facial expression.
Mm.
It could be a change in the color of the skin that changes with the something that we call in NLP, which is sensory acuity, which allows us to look at the face of somebody and notice minute changes that happen moment to moment, such as the change in the color of the skin. The lips might become a little larger, the pupils might become dilated or smaller, there might become some slight wrinkles around the eyes, and all of those very, very minute changes that happen moment to moment tell us something. They give us some information that is telling us something about what's happening inside the individual as they're talking. So it could be that the minute change that I'm seeing in the face is indicating that there's a negative emotion, an emotional limiting belief, or something that is behind the surface of the words that they're using,
Mm-hmm.
which causes me to dig deeper and deeper until I find out, until I'm able to tease out of them the information that I'm looking for. So it's more a case of, as the person who's watching and listening and looking and paying attention, because as you know, it's so much more about than the language that we use.
Mm-hmm.
It's the tone of voice, it's the
Right.
body language, it's the things that you see that are it's the unconscious behavior, the unconscious movement that happens in a person
Mm-hmm.
that tells me that there is perhaps something more to what they're saying that is going to lead me and give me the data that I need, that's
Mm-hmm.
going to assist them in making the transformation. So it's really, really about the unconscious patterning that's happening at the core level of the human being, at the core level of the person,
Mm-hmm.
that I'm trying to get to. Because the surface level structure is all conscious,
Right.
and it's digging behind that that's going to help me to get to the data that I need.
Okay. And
So
then one thing that I was wondering, because when you do the one-on-one session, I could see that
yeah,
because you're just talking to one person. When you're doing the
yes,
training, which I'm assuming is with a group, how do you
yes,
teach these techniques if you're not able to ask these questions? Or I guess people work in pairs too, and they apply the techniques to themselves.
they
Tell us
do.
more about like
Yeah.
the group setting.
So the group setting is super exciting, and we were just speaking before we started that I've just literally finished an 8-day NLP practitioner training, which is an incredible opportunity for people to come and learn these skills in not just NLP, but also timeline therapy, which is an incredibly powerful, one of the most powerful techniques that I've ever come across in terms of letting go and removing negative emotions and limiting beliefs. Because there's nothing wrong with emotions, there's nothing wrong with feeling and experiencing emotions, but it's when they hold us or keep us stuck
Mm,
in things that have happened in the past. We've all been through experiences that have been painful. We've all
yeah.
been through some, traumatic experiences to a certain degree. But it's when we get stuck in that and those emotions kind of hold us hostage and keep us stuck in the past. So timeline therapy assists us in letting go. It's like cutting the cords on
Okay.
those emotions, and also hypnotherapy and NLP coaching. So it's 4 modalities that are taught in an NLP training or an advanced NLP practitioner training that I deliver. And so they come and they learn the techniques. So we learn the history, some background
Okay.
information about them. You learn the actual skill, that what you need to do, and then you learn how to actually apply that in a coaching setting. So it's so much deeper than just coming, and it's not like school. It's not, you're getting a chance to actually use these techniques, but
Mm,
even more than that, it's a case of, as a trainer, layering in behavior after behavior after behavior with the trainees at the unconscious level, opening up the unconscious mind and assisting them in letting all of this information pour in
mm,
so that they can go out and use these skills. So there's so much to learn, there's so much information to take in. So that has to be done in such a way that the trainee, the graduate's going to feel confident about going away and using these skills. So it is about them coming and learning these techniques, but it's also about them actually fundamentally transforming their life over eight
right.
days because they come and they learn these skills at a cognitive level, but they also learn them at a physical level because they experience working with somebody else and
Mm,
experience what it is, it feels like, it looks like, it sounds like, to have those problems that they came to the training with on day one
mm.
disappear by
Wow.
the end of the training. Core problems that have kept them stuck, have held them hostage
Mm,
for, could be their whole life. It could be
right.
something that happened in childhood that triggered the beginning of this problem. And then they come to the training on day one. The problem is there, it exists. As a result of doing this work and working through their problems with their partner and experiencing these skills and techniques, the problems just disappear, and it is such an exquisite process to be a part of. And I feel so incredibly privileged to not only know how to use these skills myself, But to be able to impart that knowledge on other people, to be able to teach other people how to do that, not only for each other, for other people,
Mhm.
but for themselves, you know,
Yeah.
using those skills on themselves and learning how to be what I call bulletproof. And
Mhm.
that doesn't mean that life doesn't knock you down or affect you, you know, when something traumatic happens. It doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt.
Right.
What it means is that you have learned how to access the internal resources within you to enable you to be able to bounce back from the things that happen in life
Mhm.
quicker and more resiliently and more strongly than you would have done previously, because you're able to access those resources that help you to move through the challenges that you will inevitably face in life. Because
Yeah.
let's face it, life happens,
Yeah.
you know. So when you've got these skills, you're not just helping other people, it tools you up from the inside, because you know where to get the information from, you know how to help yourself as well as helping other people. So
Right.
I'm not sure if that answered the question, but I
No,
hope it
it
kind of
totally
touched on
does.
some stuff that was relevant.
And it's so fascinating to me because this is what I have been learning about, like finding the answers within you, because for so long in life we look for the answers outside of us, right, and in other people.
Yes,
And it's
yes,
interesting that you say these people come with this problem and then the problems start going away. It seems kind of crazy to say, how is that possible? But
yeah,
it's just literally thinking differently and seeing the same situation with a different perspective. And it's all it takes is you deciding, and of course using the right tools to
yeah,
do this whole process. And I do want to talk more about the hypnotherapy,
okay,
because one of the things that I've said several times on the show before and in my work is how I grew up in church. My mom is a pastor, so
okay,
for the longest time, whatever was related to the mind or even sometimes to the emotion was kind of
mm,
like off limits, because we were supposed to be so in tune with our spirits and all of that. And growing up, getting married, leaving the nest and starting life on my own, so to speak,
mm-hmm,
has helped me kind of see things from a different perspective, and how
mm,
all of who we are is important, and we need to understand all of who we are, and that
yeah,
includes our brain, that includes our emotions. And even when you think about hypnosis, for me before it was something like a cult, don't mess with that. And now I
yes,
have been understanding that it's just me talking to myself and training myself to do what I want myself to do, instead of just uh letting life happen like accidentally, which it's not really accidentally because something is
mm,
being taught
yes, yes,
regardless, but it's
yeah,
not intentional, right? And that's how I started seeing hypnosis as something more intentional, um, of the way you talk to yourself, instead of just thinking that it's happening, it's me being in control. So can you explain more how you can use hypnosis in a good way and kind of debunk these myths that maybe
yeah.
other people have that I have had?
Yeah, 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 definitely. 100%. I'm so excited that you asked this question. I really literally am. Because to me, hypnosis and hypnotherapy, it is a science. It's an ancient science that stems back to ancient Egypt. You know, the earliest examples, the earliest written notation we've got of something akin to hypnosis or hypnotherapy is in hieroglyphics
Wow.
in the pyramids in Egypt. You know, they had sleep temples, and then through the ages, hypnotherapy and hypnosis developed and evolved. And then there was a certain part of time in the Middle Ages, in the Dark Ages, when it became not so acceptable to use, and it became demonized, so to
Right.
speak. When really, this is an incredibly powerful science, tapping into and communicating with, again, the unconscious mind, communicating with the core of who you are, again coming back to this part of you that runs between 95 and 97% of the human functioning. So there's nothing dirty or evil or nasty about it. And it's so interesting that you said what you've said, because I completely connect and resonate with that.
Mm.
I grew up thinking and believing, because of the beliefs that I was raised believing,
Right.
that hypnotherapy and hypnosis were evil, they were bad, there was, you know, if you did them, you would be punished. And it's taken me a long time, it's taken me some work to actually overcome and get rid of those core beliefs, because when I've seen the fundamental transformations that can happen using this beautiful science, there cannot be anything evil, nasty, or dirty about it, because you're just tapping into the essence and the core of who you are. And like you said, communicating with that part of yourself so beautifully in order to facilitate transformation. So the process is done using linguistically, you can do it using language.
Mhm.
And there's certain language that we use to induce a trance. So to induce somebody in bypassing what we call in hypnotherapy the critical faculty, which is the part of us that cares to distinguish between reality and fantasy.
Mm.
So when you go to the movies and you watch The Matrix, you've seen The
Yes,
Matrix,
yes,
and you've seen the woman running across the ceiling or across the wall.
yes.
You don't stop and say, oh, this is rubbish, this isn't real, I'm not watching this, I'm off. You say, oh my gosh, let me just watch this amazing film and let me just take it all in and absorb it. So that's when you've allowed your critical faculty to be relaxed, and you just allow the information
Okay.
to just come into your neurology, and you just accept it as, yeah, okay, I'm just going to enjoy this moment. So that's kind of what we're doing when we are inducing a trance. We're just assisting the conscious mind in getting out of the way, because the
Okay.
conscious mind's the chatterbox.
Mhm.
And what we want to do is get the conscious mind out of the way, and we want to just communicate directly with the unconscious mind and assist the unconscious mind in opening up to really positive, powerful information that we want to give it, so that it can actually make the changes at the unconscious level. Because going back to something that I said earlier on, when you make change at the unconscious level, it happens in an instant, it happens in that moment. And so it's such a fundamentally powerful tool to learn to use yourself. You can learn how to do self-hypnotherapy, and if you do that, then that's a really, really powerful tool to learn. And you can use it with other people, you can use it with children. There are different ways of inducing a trance and bypassing that critical faculty, loosening up that that grip on
Mhm.
the things that are getting in the way, the consciousness that's getting in the way
Yeah.
of opening up the unconscious mind to allow us to make those changes at the unconscious level. And I really am glad that you asked that question, because it's such an important, because people do have
Yeah.
these limitations or beliefs about hypnosis and
Yeah.
hypnotherapy, that it's woo woo, it's magic,
Right.
but it's just talking to somebody in a specific way
Mhm.
that allows them to just relax, slows down the brain waves,
Mhm.
gets them into a nice state of trance, and
Mhm.
then allows us to communicate with the unconscious mind to make those fundamental changes that they've decided that they want to make.
Right. Oh, I love that. And what a beautiful explanation. I hope
Thank
more people
you.
will be encouraged into looking into this further,
I
knowing
hope
that it's
so.
not dirty, like you said.
No.
It's just understanding how your mind works, right?
Yeah,
And taking advantage of this understanding to make the transformations that you want to make. So it's
absolutely.
just an amazing tool. So tell us more how we can work with you, because I know you're in the UK. So for whoever
Yes.
is not over there, we were talking about you wanting to do more stuff online.
Yeah.
But in terms of one-on-one clients and how can we find your content, give us all the information.
Okay, thank you. So I do one-to-one work either in person or on video call, so you don't need to necessarily be in the UK to
Okay.
take advantage of working with me. And to find out more about that, you can go to, I'm on Instagram mostly, is where you'll find most of my stuff, and my website, which is, I don't know whether people will be able to, because my name's quite a complicated
Right.
one,
I'll
but
type it out in
it's,
the notes, but go ahead.
okay, so type it in the notes, but it's ayodeliokolade.com. And then my handle on Instagram is Ayodele Okolade, and they can find out more about the work that I do and how this work, I know, will fundamentally transform their life if they're interested in having their life be the way that they want it to be, if they have realized that there are limitations that have been holding them back,
Mhm.
they're ready to really step into the version of themselves that they want to be. This stuff is like magic, it works, and it helps people to transform. So I urge anyone who is interested to get in touch, and I offer a free consultation, and we can talk about the problem and find out how working with me would help them. So yeah, thank you for that opportunity. I
Of
appreciate
course,
it.
this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your story. And yeah.
Thank you so much for having me. I've really, really loved talking to you. I really have. I'm very, very grateful. So thank you.